Hi, everyone. Michael Britt here. Now, I'm very proud that the Psych Files podcast has been so successful. It passed the 20 million download mark. And a lot of that success is due to my episodes on how you can use proven memory strategies to remember just about anything, from memorizing terms for a test to remembering people's names at a party or a meeting. So I put all of these episodes into one audio course. Hippos, aliens, and llamas quickly master the tricks to a great memory. And it's available now on avid.fm/memorymaster. All one word. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 293 of the Psych Files. Your host, Michael Britt, here. And in this episode, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. October happens to be Emotional Intelligence Awareness Month. And so, are you aware, and do you understand what you're feeling, and do you know how to manage those feelings? So I've got an interviewee for this episode. His name is Carlin, and he is a school psychologist who has written a really interesting book called, it's a children's book, Bug and Boo. So if you are a parent or a therapist or someone who just wants to learn more about emotional intelligence, this is the episode. Okay, so let's go to our interviewee, Carlin. He's a school psychologist in Kansas. He works with children of all ages to help them develop the kind of emotional regulation that is needed to be successful in the classroom and in life. So he got in touch with me not too long ago to let me know about the Bug and Boo book that he wrote. And there are actually some connections here between what he's doing and some previous episodes, 288 and 289, the interviews with Dr. Anna Vagan, in which she talked about her use of stories and movies and videos to help children better understand themselves and others. Let's talk with Carlin. Thanks for getting in touch with me. What prompted you to get in touch?
I've listened to your podcast a ton. I drove a lot in my early career. I lived in one place and drove about an hour away, and so podcast became a part of my life. And my book's been out for about a year, but I'm getting ready to relaunch. It happens to also be Emotional Intelligence Awareness Month and a bunch of other mental health and social emotional, like it's Bullying Prevention Month, and it's like there's a bunch of stuff that fits into this month. There's several different audiences that purchase my book. There's parents and grandparents, teachers and educators, but then also mental health professionals. I know of several that have been using it in their practice as well. I've been listening to you, like I say, for a long time, and I certainly appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, no, I'm certainly open to authors who want to, send their books along. I've gotten a few over the years, and I'm like, well, I don't know if this one's perfect for the audience, but you sent me your book, and I read it, and I thought, this sounds right for this audience. And I don't have enough therapists that I interview, so I'm trying to get more of that because my background's more in like social applied psychology, and but I want to make sure to represent more of the field. So first off, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes, I'm a school psychologist in Hays, Kansas. I work for the Special Ed Cooperative. I work primarily with special education students, but I also work with general ed students providing some social skills lessons, working through mostly with self-regulation kind of things with young kids. But I've worked with kids of all ages from preschool to high school. This is my 7th year as a school psych. Worked in a couple different places. My early career was spent particular focus on early childhood. I supported a Head Start with their social emotional development 1 day a week and did social emotional lessons there. That's actually where I got the idea for the book that I wrote. And so I've been very active with my state association. I'm the immediate past president for the Kansas Association of School Psychologists, and that's helped me get my role there has helped me connect with a lot of school psychs across the nation and to see what all is possible as a school psychologist to have a greater influence, not just in my own schools, but in a broader capacity.
Do you have a master's or a doctorate?
I have a master's degree and an education specialist degree in school psychology from Fort Hays State.
And I notice your Skype name was School Psych, School SYKE, which was a very cool name. Is that like also... And that's also a website you have, schoolpsych.com?
Yeah, it actually started as my Twitter handle.
So you got that as a Twitter handle as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Okay, great.
yes, and I got in dabbling with Twitter, and school psych was taken, like PSYCH,
All
and
right.
so I'm like, well, let's just shift this a little bit. And I started to, when I would develop my website and eventually my company that I run, I do some consulting and professional development out of, as well as sell the book out of. Just kind of stuck with it. I already kind of had that brand. I thought it kind of fit well, and
Yeah, I think it's really it's easy to remember. School SYKE.com or on Twitter. Definitely stick with that. It's really hard to find names that include psych. So
Yeah.
that was a good little twist.
I felt that it captured my excitement about, like, I think of psych as like psyched up, not like psych as in tricking you kind of a thing.
Just psyching you out or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So now you mentioned that one of the reasons you got in touch with me is because it's Emotional Intelligence Month. Is that right?
Yeah, October is Emotional Intelligence Awareness Month, and so it's an opportunity to help everybody understand their self-awareness, self-management, and other social-emotional skills, helping develop some of that so they can make better decisions in their lives, whether they're 3 or 30. So.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I've ever devoted a whole episode to emotional intelligence. Because I think of it as sort of our ability to manage our emotions, to be aware of them in the first place, and then to manage them. Is that about right, or how would you define emotional intelligence?
I think emotional intelligence is your ability to problem solve around your own emotions. And there's a lot of terms that I think have some similar meanings. I usually think of more social emotional development or social emotional learning. There's 5 domains there with self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. And I think all of that, as we're growing up, you think of that as development. But when we're thinking about decision making, whether we're thinking about cognitive ability or emotional skills, it all contributes to the quality of the decisions that we're making. And so I think that's why that intelligence gets tied on to the emotional piece.
Okay. We know that young people's brains aren't, particularly the frontal lobe, isn't fully developed until they're maybe in their 20s. You try to sort of guide them to be more aware of what they're feeling and how to deal appropriately with what they're feeling and what other kids are feeling as well. Is that right?
Correct, yeah. And so, I work a lot with kind of helping kids with where they're at in development. So a lot of the strategies that we use with young kids, because that frontal lobe isn't as developed, we start to build that development by helping them become more aware of how their body changes when they have big emotions and see that, and how they can see it in others. But a lot of the strategies we teach with young kids are physical strategies, paying attention to their breathing. There's a breathing technique I really like called square breathing, where you draw a square on your hand, and as you're going across, you breathe in, and as you go up or down, you breathe out. And so it makes this nice little texture on your hand. It gives a nice structure to the breathing that young kids can understand, and it gives them that physical intervention that can help them get to a calm point where they can make better decisions with their peers. So
interesting. Square breathing.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that dealing with my own kids, they're often not aware that they're clenching or that the muscles are tight. They're just not even yet aware of that. And so just to be aware of what the emotion is that you're feeling is to sort of step back. I guess it's a bit like metacognition, right? It's just like, whoa, let me step back. I'm feeling this now.
Right. And helping kids understand that everybody has different feelings. Some people, they do get their clenched fist, and some people, they get redness in their face or hot on their neck or whatever that is for them, and helping them identify that for themselves can be key. And really, of course, when we're talking about 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds, that's really a developing skill. Some are gonna pick up on it early, some may not. But starting to talk about it and getting them focused on it helps that develop, especially when they get into like that early elementary ages, where they definitely are becoming more self-aware. But we can help them be a little bit more intentional about it by talking about it. And as adults, modeling that, talking about, I'm feeling kind of upset right now because this. And I do that a lot with my own kids of, this is how I'm feeling. Help them see the process. There's a lot to be said about naming the emotion. That's a part of the self-awareness as well. It's not just the physical change, but identifying what is the actual emotion you're feeling. Because once you identify the emotion, now you can start to approach it, as opposed to just being kind of your brain kind of running amok, for lack of a better word. You stop, name it, and now you can address it. When I'm upset, I can do this.
Yeah, I know some of my early training was really about that. It was about, I mean, it sounds kind of Rogerian in a way. I mean, being able to say to a client, to another person in your life, boy, that must be frustrating. And you're helping that person to identify what they're feeling by saying, I can see you're really frustrated, or boy, that must have made you mad. That's helping them identify with their own feeling if they're not aware of it yet.
Exactly, yeah. And that those empathetic statements, especially with kids that are in a tantrum, those empathetic statements can be a kind of a context breaker almost of it takes them out of that emotion, and they start to, oh yeah, it is that. And you can sometimes, depending on the age of the kid and their developmental level, sometimes that can be getting them talking and help them start to process through that emotion, when, especially with kids that have emotional disabilities or more significant emotional needs, they can kind of lose control, where they have a hard time getting back out of it, where giving that that empathetic statement can help them start to process and come out of it a little bit quicker. I found that to be very effective with a lot of kids.
Interesting, yeah. All right, well, take us to your book. First, it's called Bug and Boo. Where did the name come from? First, what made you decide to write a book?
I decided to write a book because, like I said, I was working with Head Start and working with parents on supporting their kids' social emotional needs. And I found that there were a lot of parents who, they really wanted to do more, but they really wanted to do things at home, but they weren't always sure what to do to support it. And so we had some handouts and stuff, but I didn't feel like they were very good. Parents didn't seem to really respond to them well. It wasn't very engaging for the kids themselves. And there's a lot of books out there. Kids that were getting the Imagination Library books from Dolly Parton, which have a section before and after the book that talks about what to do before you read, while you read, and after you read. And I thought that kind of a structure would be helpful for parents, not just on the literacy side of things like those books did, but in Bug and Boo, putting those kind of tasks for the caregiver to help reinforce the social emotional needs that are introduced in the book. Because social emotional development isn't just an event, it's a process. And so giving them some things that they can read the book, introduce the concepts, and then teach it. But I found that there were a lot of parents that were needing that kind of a structure to add value to their interactions at home.
In addition to just telling a story, you wanted to set it up so that they would be almost processing the story with the child, asking questions. How do you think Bug feels about that? How do you think Boo feels at this moment? Also, it's beautifully illustrated. Can we give a shout out to your illustrator?
Yes, Carissa Gonzalez-Othon. She is an amazing artist. She's got some really awesome stuff you can find on Facebook and stuff under the name.
To her from the website.
She was great in taking what was kind of an abstract vision of mine and turning it into a reality. And I couldn't have asked for it to be any better. The level of detail that she did. You asked about the names of the characters a minute ago, and I apologize for talking past that. Bug and Boo are the nicknames for my children. Okay. Bug is my son, Evan. He's 3 right now. And my daughter is Boo. Those are their nicknames since they were infants. And I thought that those would be really cute character names, and it kind of developed from there. Mm. And she was able to take those names and really integrate it into those characters. Even in the illustrations, you'll see that on Bug, his shirt has a variety of bugs on them. And over the course of the story, they actually develop from like a larva state into like a butterfly.
No kidding. I did not notice that, actually. Bug looks like a young girl.
Boo is the young girl.
Oh,
so.
Boo is the girl. Okay. She's got like somewhat kind of cat or rabbit features, quite human, but really cute. Right.
Yeah, they're intended to be bunnies, but really I've had several people say what they could be, but yeah, that wanted them to be humanoid, but still have kind of the character traits, making it a little more abstract for kids and something that they can relate with.
Yeah. I mean, they're really neat looking characters. So the story, tell us a little bit about this story and how you imagine parents or therapists might use the book.
Bug and Boo is highlights a very typical interaction that many families have probably seen, where Boo, the older sister, figuring out what she wants to do, she decides she's going to draw a picture for her mom. She sits down and starts coloring, drawing, and all of a sudden Bug comes in, and like any little brother does, he wants to help too. And he grabs a crayon and scribbles all over the picture that Boo has been working on. And she, of course, gets upset by this, yells at Bug, saying, "You ruined it." It creates this big conflict where now Bug is scared and he runs off, and Boo now has to figure out, how does she solve this problem? She realizes that she didn't mean to be that upset with him. She didn't mean to scare Bug, but she needs to fix it. And so she goes through a process that her parents taught her to calm down. She shows that how she knew that she was upset, talking about that self-awareness. Uses belly breathing, which is a breathing technique where you put your hands on your belly and breathe in and out slowly, and pay attention to the rise and fall of your belly against your hands. But she uses that strategy to calm down, and then she has to figure out, now how do I fix this with Bug? I didn't mean to upset him, but how do I fix this? And so she goes to him, and there's kind of a restorative interaction where she apologizes and they come to an agreement on how they can work together on the picture. In the back of the book, there are some caregiver activities that they can go through. Before you read the book, look at the pictures. Talk about their own emotions. As you're reading, like you say, how does this character feel now? When Boo yells at Bug, how does that make Bug feel? Are there any strategies you use to calm down as you're working through that? And then there's also some things afterwards to be able to teach the child themselves how to recognize their emotions and then how to control their emotions. Kind of walks them through step by step with belly breathing. So really, that you can kind of use the book in several different ways. You can use it as that teaching that specific skill. If you know that they've been working on it at school, there are several curricula that use belly breathing or similar techniques. And if you as a parent know that they're using those, you can kind of substitute that into place in the lesson as you're talking with your kids, or when you see Boo choosing to do belly breathing, you say, well, this is belly breathing, but maybe they're using square breathing, and you can talk to them about how they're similar in that they control your breathing and help you focus on something else. As a teacher, it can support a curriculum you're already using. As a parent, it can reinforce some of the things that you're trying to instill in your kids in being able to control their emotions, and it gives them a strategy other than tantruming or some of the ways that our kids do choose to express their emotions. It gives them a way to work through that. If you don't have a tool, you find whatever is easiest and end up having to be more adaptive in your skills. Whereas if you give them a specific skill and reinforce that and prompt them, and when you see them using it, hey, great job, I saw you belly breathe and calm down, you made a really good choice there. Those kind of things will help develop that in the child to be more ingrained in their daily behavior. So.
Yeah, actually, when you talk about the breathing, I'm reminded of, there's some app I saw. It's a simple app, for the cell phone or whatever, but it's like a little red ball, and it starts off small, and it gets bigger slowly, not too slow, but slowly it gets bigger, and it goes from 1 to 4, and then it stays at that larger size for another count of 4, and then it gets smaller, and you're basically just supposed to follow this ball with your breathing. You breathe in for a count of 4, you hold, you let it out. So, right. Whatever works.
And talking about apps, there's several that I use with students I work with. There's one called Relaxing Breathing on an iPad that does something similar, but it's with what I call it a blue flower. And you can change the color, but for my kids, I use that blue flower as the visual, so that even when they don't have the app, they can kind of think about it. But it's very similar. It starts small, and it gets bigger and smaller, and they're breathing. There's a voice that kind of helps guide them. And it goes from a fast breathing to a slower breathing. It takes it down. That's a really good app.
What I'll do is I'll put links to these apps on the site.
I'll have to look at what the exact name is now that I think about it. But I'll send that to you for you to be able to include. But then there's also one, it's just called the Sesame Street Breathe app. And it goes through some different problem solving. Like there's a part where a kid's trying to put it on his shoes and he gets upset, and it kind of is the child gets to pick which action do I want to take, and then it walks them through it. And it really, my own kids, they really like it, but also the kids I work with, especially those younger kids, really like those apps. One thing that I like about iPads and books and other things when you're talking with kids that emotions might be a little high, is it kind of creates this third person to bounce off of. It takes that interaction from being so personal, especially with students or children who have a history of trauma, that maybe they don't have as much trust, maybe a little bit more resistant to direct communication. Using the iPad, using the book, you can make it a little bit less personal while still getting that engagement. You kind of bring the iPad or the book, and it's like a third person, and you're talking through it, kind of like a mirror where you're referencing it as opposed to saying, you did this, you need to do this. Well, what did Bug do in this case? And I find that those interactions can be very powerful in getting that interaction when maybe you wouldn't if it was more direct.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah.
So what are your? I mean, you must have plans for another book. What's your thinking?
I do have goals for writing more books. It's a matter of how well this one sells and seeing what kind of interest there is out there. I've gotten it into. There's several Head Starts that use the book across the nation, and so it's a matter of if the interest is there. I do have some books I'm wanting to write on things like back to school or dealing with anxiety around a new situation. There's one that is kind of a personal touch to me, is kind of around attachment theory. My son, when he was younger, and still, we used to joke that he has a hug meter. Like he would go and play, and then after a little bit of time, he'd come and he'd want to just get a hug or sit on our lap for a few minutes, and then he'd go back and play. Mm-hmm. And we'd joke that he needed his hug meter filled. And I thought that would be a really cute story, Bug's hug meter. So that's one that's in the hopper as far as potentially down the line.
But you've got, I mean, this is sort of ideal for a series of books because you've got these unique characters. I haven't seen anything like them, and they're very appealing visually, and the Bug and Boo thing is kind of catchy. Bug and Boo go to the supermarket. I mean, it could be just about anything. Bug and Boo, deal with a bully, for example. How you need a better title, but that's the.
And I like that because having a boy and a girl in slightly different ages, it allows for some books that can target some different conflicts depending on the age, whether it's elementary age, preschool age, those kind of things. So it just kind of depends on the direction it goes. I do have some vision of doing a book or books targeted at more upper elementary that would be kind of like a Diary of a Wimpy Kid type books, but some of those are that market is pretty saturated right now. But I still see that there's something that's a little bit more focused on the social emotional development and that could be helpful. My brother is an artist, and I've been trying to work with. He does a lot of art that's similar to like anime type or like graphic novel type stuff. And I've thought about doing a graphic novel targeted at older adolescents about things like that hit on things like depression and mental health needs at that age. Mm-hmm. Something that my goal is trying to reach the children where they are, and in a way that will be engaging for them. And so those are kind of 5 and 10 year plans, but I definitely see a need there. Uh-huh. Just in working with schools, the social emotional needs that our kids are facing have seemed to increase. I don't know if it truly has or if it's just a perception thing, but talking with teachers, talking with parents, it feels like the needs are higher, and trying to give more information to kids to develop those positive social skills and to be able to deal with those issues that are relevant to them in a way that is helpful. That's kind of an end goal of mine. So.
Well, one thing I want to make clear to the listener is that we've been using the word book, but this is a book you could easily read within a session, right? I mean, you could. Correct. It's not like a novel or anything like that. So that's another cool feature.
It's a children's book. It's about I think it's around 24 pages, something like that. Yeah. And it could easily be a part of a short session, or if you're in a preschool, or if you have a teacher could easily use that as a short lesson in their classroom. Parents can do it as a bedtime story. So is it? Where do you want people to go and get the book then? You can find it on Amazon right now if you just go and search. But if you go to schoolpsych.com, SYKE.com, if you go to schoolpsych, you'll always find the active link there. It is available in paperback and Kindle, and so you can find the ebook there.
Yeah, but it seems to me I'd rather, especially, I don't know, me personally, I'd rather have a physical.
Exactly. I prefer the physical one, but again, I think most people with children's books, they want it, that tangible thing. So
kids want it in their hands.
Yeah. So.
All right, this is great. Well, Kyle, so much. I appreciate you coming on the show. This is a really neat book. So I'll encourage listeners to, if you come to my site, I'll just send you back over to schoolpsych.com. But I think you'll really like this. And then as far as contacting you, people could find you on Twitter or...
Correct.
There's a contact information on schoolpsych.com.
Correct, yep. That's a great way to get me or to reach me is Twitter.
Okay, so. That's cool. All right, very good. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Really interesting interview. Wish him a lot of success with his book. And I'll have links on my webpage, of course, to his site, schoolpsych.com. That's a pretty cool name. SchoolSYKE.com. Check it out. Nice site. And you can learn more about him and about the book and what he's up to. See you in the next episode.